Legend of Total War here, and today I want to talk a bit about Imperator Rome, and this is also kind of a first impression review of it. So I've played it for about 20 or 30 hours now, and so far I quite enjoy it. Now, I like the game, but I certainly just want to say off the bat that I don't love it. I think it did fall pretty short of expectations in many ways, but in other areas I'm also relatively impressed with it. So, first thing I want to talk about, I guess, is the community, the Paradox community response to, its release, which was pretty negative. If we open up Steam here, we can see that it got 58% negative reviews. That's as of May 1st, today, of me recording this. So it's been out for about 5 days, and 58% negative reviews. That's pretty bad. Now, I've been monitoring it a little bit over the past few days. The first few reviews that came through were people who just couldn't get the game to work, and they were putting in negative reviews as opposed to support tickets. I highly recommend people don't do that, because that's not a review on the game. You just have a problem with you can't get it to work. But anyway, whatever, people can do whatever they want. And now the reviews that are coming through are starting to actually talk about the meat of what they like or dislike about the game. And so I've read some of those reviews, and I get an idea of what people are thinking. So the crux of why people are not liking this at the moment is due to it being more or less a shell of a Paradox game, lacking depth. It's sometimes funny, being a Total War, part of the Total War community, looking at the Paradox community complaining that their games don't have depth. And we just have to laugh and be like, oh, you think your games don't have depth? Let me show you a different Rome 2 that has lack of depth. But anyway, it's just funny, that's all, from the outside point of view, because I'm a big part of the Total War community, but I've been bits and pieces here with the Paradox one, so it's just interesting the differences in behavior, just subtle differences. Anyway, so I don't think any of these points are invalid by any means, and in many ways they're right. This, compared to, say, EU4 or CK2, it does lack depth by comparison to those games. But this game here isn't a sequel to those games. This is actually a sequel to Europa Universalis Rome, which came out 10 years ago. And I would mainly like to compare it to that game, not to EU4, not to CK2. And we also need to keep in mind that Paradox games always release as sort of like a shell of a product, and then DLC makes the game amazing later down the track. It happens with all of their games. Try playing Europa Universalis 4 with no DLC. Try playing CK2 with no DLC. Stellaris, Hoi 4, play it with no DLC. It makes a big difference. Now, this game just came out. There's hopefully going to be a fair bit of DLC. Now, I know a lot of people don't like getting nickel and dimed for DLC, but surely by now you got to realize that's just how Paradox does it. I mean, I don't think anybody purchased this game thinking, wait, there's going to be DLC? I didn't know there was going to be DLC. Of course there was going to be DLC, So I don't know why people are surprised at this point. I'm certainly not. So I've purchased this game. I didn't get it for free, with the knowledge that there is going to be $200-300 worth of DLC come 2 years from now, and I'm probably going to purchase all of it, because I'm interested to see what this game can turn out to be with that DLC. But now let's talk about the game in its current state. What's good about it and what's bad about it, right? So comparing it to Europa Universalis Rome is what I'll be doing, not comparing it to EU4. Now, EU Rome was actually my first Paradox game. It got me into Paradox games, and whilst it certainly is very much dated now, it's still a fun game. I played it not that long ago, but comparing it now, like, this game here stays fairly true to what the design and the playstyle of the first game. Now, in the back of my mind, I call this a lot of the time the second Rome 2, because obviously, being part of the Total War community, Rome 1 was a game for many of us that really got us into Total War. And then Rome 2 came along, And most people expected Rome 2 to just basically be Rome 1, but with better graphics. But that's not what we got. And Rome 2, even though it's massively been improved since it was released, it had a bad launch. To say the least, Rome 2 had a bad launch. And now it seems like we have another Rome 2 here that's going to have another bad launch. But funny thing is though, comparing it to the launch of Total War Rome 2, and then comparing it to Imperator Rome, I'm sorry, but Rome 2 was in a far worse state, as in Total War Rome 2 was in far worse state than this game. At least from my point of view. This game runs reasonably well on my computer. I know some people are saying that they have huge stuttering issues, but it runs... I haven't had any real issues, but then again, I don't play on particularly high speeds. I think a lot of people, if they're going to play on really high speed, it will stutter a fair bit. But when you have a look at the amount of information that's on the map here, you can kind of see why, and I don't mind that. Like, I would rather than be ambitious with these campaign maps and have a little bit of a hiccup here and there than for them to not be ambitious with it and it to run super smoothly. That's my personal preference. We get the same sort of thing with Total War. You know, people complaining about end turn times, but I often say, look, if the end turn times are long, that simply means that the AI has a lot of things to do, and I would much prefer the end turn times being really long and the game have a lot of depth, than the alternative being the end turn times being like 5 seconds, but there's nothing in the game. So if I had to choose one of the two, I'd choose it to be this way and have, you know, a bit of stuttering here and there. That's my personal preference. Not everyone's going to agree with me. But anyway, so how does this game play compared to the first game? Like I said, pretty much the same. You get a casus belli, you go to war, you get the war score, you get territory after you win. That's how it works in just about all Paradox games. So, in that regard, there's not really that much to talk about. It works reasonably well. It's maybe a little bit on the easy side of things. I've been playing strategy games for a long time, so I didn't expect these guys, the AI, to be able to beat me, but they certainly didn't put up a very good fight. I think that the smaller countries out here are actually more difficult to deal with than like Egypt, Phrygia, or Carthage. I've absolutely stomped Carthage. I really thought I'd have a hard time when I went to war with them, but they really didn't put up a fight at all. Same with Egypt. They just did not put up a fight. Whereas these guys out here, I fought two or three of them at a time here, they put up a pretty decent fight. Even though they lost like every battle, they really wore me down. But overall, like, I've had fun. Now, talking about the big change to I guess the Europa Universalis Rome system is the Monarchy points. This wasn't in the first game, and I kind of wish it wasn't in this game either. It makes a little bit of sense for EU4 for the Monarchy points to be there, and in this, I gotta admit, I really wish they didn't put that in there, because this system here, I get why it's there, but I just don't like it. It's there to stop big, massive powers from just rolling over the map, because most of what you can do in the game is tied to these powers here, and the amount that you accumulate is pretty much the same as any other faction. Any other country can produce just as much as you, because like you can buy like infrastructure points, well, which is these ones here, but the amount that it costs is based on how much you make, not like a base cost of these. So the more you make, the more it costs. So if you make jack shit money, well, it's gonna cost relatively the same, relatively speaking. So the bigger you get, you don't get more Monarchy points. Whereas in EU4, it's not necessarily the case, because you've got advisors, and the richer you get, the better advisors you can get, and therefore get more Monarchy points. You know, comparing the two games. But in this, like, I've played for 100 years now, and I'm still accumulating just jack shit powers. It all just depends on whether or not my leader is any good. But overall, you know, it's not too bad. I just don't really like it that much. Now, there's an imbalance definitely between them. Not every power is of equal value. I would say that the Civic power is probably the most valuable. That's what I've usually been desperate for the entire campaign. That's what I've been spending all of my money on, basically, just building infrastructure points, because of the inventions. A lot of these inventions are really good. Some of them aren't so good, but you need to do them in order to get what's behind them, which, you know, makes sense. So I've just been desperate to get as many Civic points as possible to get all these investments to try to keep up with my tech rate, which I admit I haven't been really focusing that much on technology. Like, I don't think 82.3% is particularly efficient research, but even with that, we're 53% ahead of, or 40 years ahead there, and 25% ahead here. That's just about to finish. So technology not doing great, but not doing badly either. And one of the main reasons for that is because your technology is based on, I guess, the percentage of citizens you have, but also their happiness. And since I've got a lot of essentially foreign citizens of different culture, the aggressive expansion really impacts on their happiness, and so they're not producing as much research points. But since I'm ahead of time, I'm not really focusing on that too much, and I think that's fine. I think a lot of people really want to like just massively focus on the tech tree, and that's fine. Play the game how you want to play it, but for me, I like to paint the map red as opposed to be a technological powerhouse. Like, I'm pretty sure Egypt's ahead of me technology-wise. Yeah, they are. But I went to war with them recently, and we just ruffle-stomped them. Absolutely ruffle-stomped them. So their technology did not save them in that regard, and they lost Alexandria, so all the technology in the world didn't fucking save them. So, I mean, we're Rome, what do you expect? But yeah, so civic power, need loads of it. Now, I think the least useful of the powers is the military power. It's only really got two uses. Where is it? If we go into military, the first use is in traditions. So the base cost is 800. Every time you research a military tech, the cost goes down by 25%. It can't go lower than 400 cost. And every time you research one of these, it goes up by 50%. So I've gone down this chain here and researched all of those, and you can see here the cost for the next one is extremely high. I can either wait to get more military tech to reduce that cost, or just wait until we've got the points. Now, I've tested to see what the upper limit cap is on these things, at what point, you know, the points get wasted. And I had, I think, 7,000 military power at one point, and it wasn't capped. So it seems like you can accumulate as much of these points as you want if you want to save them up. Now, the other thing that military power is used for is to reduce war exhaustion, which goes down pretty fast on its own. And there's inventions that reduce war exhaustion as well. So I never really needed to do that. So the main purpose of the military power is just primarily to get those traditions, which is fine, but that's a very small portion of the game. There is also a diplomatic option to support rebels, but I don't know. I've never found that particularly useful in the first game. It's just not my way of doing things. It's just a bit of a dick move, and especially when I could just stomp them anyway in the first place. I don't see supporting rebels. Like, if the AI was actually really good and actually put up a really big fight, then sure, maybe supporting rebels makes sense, but I didn't find it in this campaign here. Maybe if I played as a smaller country, maybe I'd do that a little bit more. But I think most people are going to gravitate towards playing as Rome. I mean, it's the namesake of the game, Imperator Rome. I think most people are going to want to play Rome. Some people are going to want to play other factions. Some people are probably going to want to play as Sinonia. They got their heart set on playing as fucking Sinonia, right? And in that case, they are playing as stupid old fucking Sinonia. Maybe you're going to need the military power to support rebels if you go up against someone big. Maybe then, I don't know. But you know, my heart's set on Rome. That's my experience anyway. And then these other 2 points, oratory power and religious, they're very similar. You may primarily use them to level up your citizens. And I can see where people are going at when they call this mana points now, because you do just magically let me just magically turn them from Etruscan to Roman. Or let's have a look over here. Yeah, this guy here is a Carthaginian. Not anymore. Magic. And now you're Roman. Oh look, you believe in megalithic and Canaanite, and no you don't, you believe in Zeus. And then it just took, I ran out of religious power. I can see where people see that as being silly. Like, it is a handy mechanic that wasn't in the first game, and I kind of like how you can manage the pops that way. Like, in the first game, it just blanketly said, this province is Roman, this province is Hellenic. It didn't break it down individual regions. So in that way, it's a lot more in-depth than the first game. But again, magic points. I can see where people say it's annoying. Now, that's not the only way of converting, and I think that this other way is way better, and probably should actually be the only way. If I was to design it, which I didn't, this is what I'd do. So you've got governors in each of your provinces, and their stats affect how well it's being governed. So let's just take a Greek settlement over here. This settlement here is not being particularly well governed. It's got local autonomy, which is making the people happy, but it's not doing what we want it to do, really. So if we have a look here, it's Thessalian and Hellenic. Now we're of Hellenic religion. There is no Roman religion. So what we would want to do is cultural assimilation, and clicking at the different types of policies will give different results. And I like this because it doesn't use up well, actually changing the policy does use up oratory power, but there is sort of another way. If we want to change the policy, this may be an exploit, I don't know, but what you could do is you just change the governor, and then it picks a random policy. And so you just keep going until you get the one that you want, which is actually the cultural one. But the thing is, you can keep popping the same guy back in and out again, and you can see it's not costing me anything to do it. And this way, I just didn't spend any of my points. So I don't know if that's a bit of an exploit or an oversight or what. And there we go, got the cultural assimilation in there, and he's just gonna convert them, so that way you don't have to use your points. So there's some cool things in the game, don't get me wrong, there really is. I don't want to sit here and bitch about it, because like I said, I like the game and I'm really interested to see where it's going, but I can see where people are coming at when they're giving it a downvote. There is some serious lapses in judgment that Paradox made, which, considering how long they've been developing grand strategy games, I kind of did expect a little bit better from them. But I think give it this game a year, and it's going to be amazing. Or maybe not. I don't know. I can't predict the future. There's bound to be shitloads of DLC incoming. I'm looking forward to it. You know, that's just the Paradox way. But at the end of the day, I do think we're going to get a great game on this. Now, a lot of people will probably ask, do I think you should buy this game? Now, everybody is different, so I don't know if you personally should buy this game. I would think it's important that if we want to see this game succeed, people should purchase it and play it, because otherwise it's going to have the Dawn of War 3 effect, or the Thrones of Britannia effect, and I don't want to see that happen here. Which is to say that if a game doesn't get enough sales, and doesn't have enough concurrent players every day, the developer will sometimes make a judgment call that the DLC is probably not going to sell well, and just abandon it, because that's what happened with Thrones of Britannia and Dawn of War 3. Now, I liked Dawn of War 3. Admittedly, it's a bad game, but I liked Dawn of War 3, and I was really looking forward to the Necron DLC, but it never came because people abandoned the game, and that's a real shame. So if you like the potential of where this is going in, you might just need to suck up the bullet and purchase it, because I have been noticing that the player base is dwindling, so I am starting to be a little bit concerned that if it continues to dwindle, that Paradox might abandon it. It's a real possibility. I really hope that they don't, because I think it's got so much potential here. And even with Thrones of Britannia, I think Thrones of Britannia had potential. Not a lot of potential, but it had some potential, and I think some DLCs could have made that game at least somewhat better. But they gave up on it because people weren't playing it. And again, it's just a real shame. So maybe this game could have used a little bit more time in development. Well, they didn't push it back at all. Like, if you look at Three Kingdoms, that game's been pushed back like 6 months from its original release date. Whereas Imperator Rome, they said 26th of April, and it came out on the fucking 26th of April, without fail. Not without bad reviews, but without fail. But anyway, that's my first impressions of the game. I'm certainly going to keep playing this game. I don't think I'm going to do any Let's Plays or live streams of it until some DLC comes out, because as my audience have said to me during live streams, the game is boring to watch. I understand, and that's fine. I'll play it in my own time, and I'll continue to do live streams of Total War Warhammer, which I'm thoroughly enjoying as well, and you guys seem to enjoy. Anyway, that's the end of this video, and I'll see you next time, fuckers.